Hello, I hope you're doing well today. My name is Ian Green, and I'm the musician for Music Dreams and also for E&J Green. And I also have a music business where I teach music, and I've been doing so for a long time. And I really enjoy working with students to help them understand music, appreciate music more, and also to help them to grow into the musicians that they're meant to be and strive to be. Today we're going to be looking at a piece called Invention number 14 in B-flat major, BWV 785 by Johann Sebastian Bach. This can be found in the Celebration Series Level 8 piano repertoire book as published through the Royal Conservatory of Music in the 2022 edition of that syllabus. But also this is a part of a set of 15 inventions written by Mr. Bach. That was a wonderful source of material for not only for music students over the last number of centuries, but also as a great source of material for his children. Something that's kind of an interesting little tidbit, as we may know, is that Johann Sebastian Bach was very prolific in that he had written many hundreds of pieces of music over the course of his very established lifetime. And also, he had many children as well. And many of them became important composers in their own right. And something that was interesting was that Bach was a very helpful teacher. He was always a very busy musician, always writing and traveling and performing all the time. But at the same time, he composed a great source material of intermediate and beginning pieces, as well as advanced pieces, to help not only musicians that surrounded him, but also to help encourage his family to become proficient in their music as well, too. And the inventions, the two-part inventions, are very much a part of this important repertoire of material for students to learn. Let's go over to the piece itself that I have scanned from the purchased copy of the Celebration Series book here, just for the purpose of this tutorial. And today what we're going to be looking at is how to understand what Mr. Bach has written, also to see what an invention does, and also to see what kinds of aspects that we should practice and how to do so. So what Mr. Bach has done is basically created a two-part invention, which basically means we have your right hand and left hand working together to create a musical conversation. Now, the musical theme itself is the first part of this first bar. We can call this the subject. So let's mark with the pen in the right hand this part as called the subject, right all the way to the let's go right to this part here where the blue is. We can call that the subject. Then, now what he's done is he's actually then now taken this subject and he's flipped it into something called an answer, or an answering musical idea, but he's used inversion. So instead of the music going up, now he's gone backwards. Now, it's really quite ingenious, isn't it? He's taking this short musical idea called a motive, which is the first half of bar 1, and he's then switched it backwards in the second half of bar 1. Then he's written the same music in the key of B-flat major at the beginning, but then he's used the chord of E-flat major for a subject here, and then he's stayed into this to the key of B-flat major, doing a couple of different little twists and turns within even just the first 4 bars. That leads us right to the downbeat of bar 4. Now what he does is he takes a segment that first little 30-second note phrase, this little musical idea at the beginning. He's now created a conversation between the hands in bars 4 and 5. Then the main theme comes back. he has a subject in the bass in bar 6 in the key of F major. Then he does the same thing in the key of B flat major in bar 7. Isn't that kind of interesting? Then he's now doing a dominant 7th going to the scale of F major, but using that thematic material. So it's really quite an ingenious set of material, isn't it? Where this short musical idea is then developed for the entire rest of the piece. Now let's take a look at a couple of ideas here. Something that we call an episode is where we take a small part of a subject and then have some fun developing it. So that happens in bars 4 and 5. So let's put down episode 1 for that first section there. Now, as well, we have a subject in bar 6, another subject in bar 7 and bar 8, and then also partially in bar 9 and 10. But now we have a conversation happening in bar 9 and 10. And back and forth we go. Now, in bar 12, we have episode 2. Because the material is not exactly a full subject. He just keeps building. But what he's doing as well is he's doing this short motive. Then the right hand plays. He does it in both hands. So that episode goes on all the way to the middle of bar 16. So we can put a little bracket there and then say that there's a subject now in the middle part of bar 16. But then the beautiful thing is there's a subject in the left hand. And then right afterwards, at the end of bar 16, the right hand also plays the subject at the same time. So it's really ingenious how he creates something called stretto in fugues, where the subject basically is in canon form, or one subject starts, another subject occurs at the same time, and then they all mathematically work perfectly together. Then we have a really interesting coda section where the subject comes back one more time before we finish as a dominant 7th to a tonic cadence in the scale of B flat major, with an authentic cadence to finish the piece. Now, something that you might be wondering about as we look at the basic analysis of this piece is how to practice. And something that's important to do is of course, to practice slowly and hand separately, looking at each of the subjects just to see how things work, or even essentially working on a couple of lines at a time to make sure that you know the timing of how the 16th notes and the 32nd notes work. Would be like playing for bars 1 to 4, which I just did, and be getting used to playing to the 8th note. Do 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 do. Then you can get the consistency very comfortably in your fingers. Now, as well, there are certain tricky sections. One tricky section is bars 5, 4, and 5. To create that interesting conversation. As well, whenever the theme or the subject comes up in the left hand, it's fairly tricky sometimes with the fingering, and especially the episode number 2 from bars 12 to 16 is also fairly tricky because we have those interacting 16th note and 32nd note patterns happening one after another. So it's kind of an interesting musical puzzle, isn't it? Now, something that's really intriguing and important is to practice slowly, but also it's good to work on the structural analysis like we discussed today to get a basic overview of how the piece works and then also how to piece it together. These different suggestions are a good introduction to starting the music, but as well, it's important to work on breaking up this piece into small sections that works well for you while making sure to have a consistent tempo, starting off with the 16th note, do 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 do, and then afterwards going to the 8th note, do 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 do, and then a bit faster. So that you can think of the quarter note as well. It's not suggested to start fast at the beginning because then the fingers will get all tied up and some of the interesting ideas will be lost. It's important to start slowly and then you can see how everything works. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching and see you next time for another tutorial.